Hi, welcome back to chapter 4 of the Happy Girls Guide to Being Whole. I hope you are enjoying this. This chapter, Men's Role in Women's Health, I thought was really well written. One of my questions for you is, have you ever had the male anatomy described to you in this way? Actually, even as a fertility educator, and I actually teach young girls, of course, through the cycle show about their bodies and such. We have a short bit that we talk about intercourse, also in the Creighton Model Fertility Care System introductory session. There's a short bit about the male anatomy. I do remember in high school learning about this as well, but even reading through it here, each stage throughout development, and then also as far as just the maturity of a single sperm. Um, I mean, really, I think men are more complicated than we really give them credit. We think that the female reproductive system is complicated, but man, I think that the anatomy of the male is pretty amazing. And I think that's something that we need to understand a little bit more. And do you agree with me? I think men need to be taught this at a younger age as well. I have two young boys, 8 and 5 years old, and I really actually need to allow myself to be excited and looking forward to their development as much as I am with my daughter because I know more about that. And I think that Teresa's book is really helping us to do that. Open the conversation about this, making it more normal. If we want female fertility to be so normal, we need male fertility to be normal as well. And for them to have that understanding that they are fertile from puberty on to the end of their life. Every day they could possibly achieve a pregnancy. They could bring a new life into the world. They have half of the template to make a new human being. That's amazing. She quoted that there is about 500 million sperm at the time of ejaculation. Yeah, I've heard that this number is actually decreasing. That's not something that's mentioned here, but it's decreasing worldwide. And we have a lot of theories that that would be about cell phone usage, radiation, things of that nature, but we're seeing a complete decline of the amount of sperm. It's also interesting to note that each sperm takes up to 3 months to mature. And per second, a man actually produces 1,000 sperm per second. And then at the time of ejaculation, 300 million can be released, but it's about a million a day. Like that's crazy, right? And think about all of these men who actually are not producing children. Like that's a lot of sperm that's just there available, right? So I just thought that was really, really interesting. Also, I thought it was a good thought to think about the difference between men's fertility versus women's fertility. Which part of this was most interesting to you in thinking about how the man's fertility and hormonal changes are through a 24-hour cycle and ours are through a month cycle? The fact that the reproductive cell of the sperm um, that men aren't born with it, but women are born with ours. I think there's a really interesting thing, dynamic to think about that as far as when bodies are mature enough to bring new life into the world. I think that's an interesting thing as well. Um, just that ingrained part about women, how we are nurturing and how men don't need sperm until they are old enough to be able to reproduce, right? So tell me in the community, in the chat, tell me about what part of the men's fertility versus the women's part of fertility did you think was most interesting? Also, I thought it was really cool right here at the end of just before Esperanza shared, Teresa wrote, in order to have healthy and happy relationships, both men and women must exercise self-control regarding their sexual activity and actively pursue genuine connections with each other as persons rather than as mere objects for sexual gratification. I think this is really an important point here. I grew up in what's called the purity culture in the Christian church, where I was told that sex is a man's need and a woman's job is to fulfill it. And I got married at the age of 30, and some of those actually really bad topics and teachings were still in my mind up until actually recently. And so I added down here too in my recommended books, two books that I read recently that really helped in understanding this complementary view that Teresa is sharing here, that the man and the woman both have things to bring to the table, and their emotions and physical needs and connective needs matter for both of them, not one more than the other. And these two books that I read that I recommend to you are number one, Talking Back to Purity Culture, and then also The Great Sex Rescue. Definitely take a chance to either listen to them on Audible or buy the books. These two books, I think, have a really great ability to begin this new conversation about, yeah, the complementariness of men and women and how we together can really change our culture. So I really also appreciated how Teresa talked about men's roles in women's fertility as far as understanding the natural cycles. We, of course, highly recommend that men attend our introductory sessions, whether they are engaged or married or just dating, because many of these men will learn so much more about the innate being of their wife by understanding their fertility and being able to understand that they go through this cyclic variation of fertility and infertility and a hormonal change that happens throughout a month's time. And so if your significant other, your fiance, boyfriend, or husband has not yet attended our introductory session of the Creighton model, definitely click on the link below and attend that free session. It will really help him. And then if you have young girls or you have teen girls, have him watch our introductory intro to charting for young women as well for the teen version. That will really help him, even at a more creative way to explain it, women's fertility. You might enjoy that as well. So I want to always be giving you great resources. They touched a little bit on too, again, the effects of birth control on the brain and on attractiveness and all of that. So of course, This Is Your Brain on Birth Control link is down below also, but I'm also going to give you a link to my YouTube video that I did on the 3 mechanisms of the birth control pill. I realize that chapter 6 is going to cover birth control and women's health, but go ahead and dive into these other resources as well as we go along. Also, I want to know what you thought about Esperanza, her all the yellow on this page. I just think what she had to write was just wonderful. And I love this quote here on page 71. What I want as a woman is a heroic man who is master of himself and respects me as an equal. And the liberation I want is not liberation from my body, but liberation from a culture who sees my body as something to be used. I want the liberation that would come from living in a culture that sees my whole self as a being worthy of care and respect, which includes my body. I really want to live in a culture that produces large numbers of heroic men. Isn't that great? It's definitely opposite of what we have right now. But as a mother of 2 boys, this really challenges me. I want to be able to train them and grow them into heroic men that have respect for themselves and respect for women's bodies as well. I really hope you're enjoying our reading of The Happy Girl's Guide to Being Whole. And I will be right back with you with chapter 5 next week.